everyone, welcome. You're watching The Road to Recovery on NDTV. I'm Shweta Rajpal-Kohli, and every week on this show, we'll tell you how the global economic crisis is impacting your life and how quickly the world is moving on the road to recovery. Here's what we've got lined up for you in the first half of the show. A quick wrap of the global economic developments coming up on our Global Recovery Tracker. A rapid-fire round every week with a CEO. This week, it's Infosys Chief Chris Gopalakrishnan. Number crunching brings you up to speed with the big numbers of the week, be it Sensex, Nifty, crude, gold or rupee levels. And the one sound bite that you can't afford to miss on our punchline section. Let's start, in fact, with our Global Recovery Tracker. And let's begin with the country where it all began. Big banks reporting fat profits, making it a fantastic week on Wall Street this week. In fact, we saw record profits for Goldman Sachs, profits exceeding more than $1 billion by what most analysts had expected. Even JP Morgan and Citigroup managed to beat street expectations. All in all, making it a week where analysts started wondering, is Wall Street getting back to normal? US stocks, remember, added over 7% in this week alone. But there are some red flags, not only in the financial institutions, but in the economy as a whole, with many analysts saying the worst may not be over. Housing market is picking up, but unemployment is rising, and the return to full employment will take place only by about 2015. So that's a wrap of the economic developments coming from America. Let's move on now to China and what's been happening there. This is the week when we saw that China actually beat most expectations by growing by as much as 7.9%, close to 8%. Also, a big ticket IPO of China's biggest home builder coming. That's a $6.2 billion IPO, perhaps this year's biggest IPO after China lifted the moratorium on its IPOs earlier this year. Let's move on now to Japan and see what's really happening there. Well, the Japanese economy is showing some signs of stabilizing. Some reports that are pointing out that at least as far as exports and industrial output is concerned, that seems to be picking up, but all is not well. The IMF in its latest assessment report has in fact pointed out that recovery will set in only by 2010, but it's a recovery that will also be accompanied with deflation that will continue to haunt the Japanese market till as much as 2011, with analysts warning that the deflationary spiral will make recovery a very, very difficult process for Japan. And finally, let's move on to what happened in India as far as the macroeconomic data is concerned. Well, we also posted better than expected corporate results this week. All of this clearly added to the investor sentiment, taking the stocks up as much as 9%. And the government also spelling out the reform agenda, making it more clear that it plans to move forward on its disinvestment agenda. All of this helping the markets go up to 9%. We remember the previous week we had seen a sharp fall of as much as 9%, and this was covered up in this week. We'll talk more about the Indian indices and other data coming out of India. But now let's move on to our rapid fire round. Joining us on the rapid fire this week, S. Gopalakrishnan, CEO and Managing Director of Infosys. So thanks very much for joining us here on the show, and congratulations for your better than expected earnings coming out. But let me start by asking you, is the worst really over as far as this crisis is concerned? Yes, I believe the worst is over. There may be ups and downs, but but the worst is over.
Tuba.com,